Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? I am Corporal Davis of the 3rd Infantry Regiment, United States Army, Assistant Relief Commander, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. The ceremony you are about to witness is the changing of the guard.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Society's ongoing efforts to capture the unique histories of the Sentinels who stand the watch at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, Arlington National Cemetery. I'm Gavin McElvenna, your host, and the president of the Society, as well as the Centennial Committee chairman. Now, the Centennial Committee is working with our Society historian to capture these memories and preserve them for future generations. As the Centennial Anniversary of the burial of the World War I unknown soldier approaches on November 11th, 2021, you can expect more of these interviews to be aired. We will post them to our YouTube channel as well as the Society Facebook page, along with our main website at www.tombguard.org. We hope that you please take a moment to visit us on our social media platforms and to let us know how we're doing and make suggestions for future episodes. Today we're going to be talking to former Staff Sergeant Jim Cardamon of Pennsylvania, who served as the 1st Relief Commander from 1957 to 1958. Jim also served as the Vice President and President of the Society and is a current active member in the Education Committee, doing presentations to the public about the unknown soldiers and the Sentinels. Today we'll be focusing on his time spent at Post 1. Now, Post 1 was a special assignment for members of the 3rd United States Infantry Regiment, who are more commonly known by their official nickname as the Old Guard. And these soldiers are assigned to protect the military district of Washington and are the official escort to the President of the United States. Now, Post 1 was the residence for the United States Army's Chief of Staff, who is the senior officer for the entire Army. Post 1 was located on Fort Myer, Virginia, and it was used mainly as a training ground for potential assignment to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Post 1 is no longer an assignment for the men and women of the Old Guard, but we wanted to take a moment to capture the history of this very unique post. So with that, let's get to the interview. Welcome back to our Post 1 interviews. Today we're talking with Staff Sergeant Jim Cardamon, who served at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Arlington National Cemetery from 1957 to 1958. So welcome, Jim.
Good to be here.
Jim, most of the audience doesn't know this, but you and I have known each other for about almost 20 years now, I would guess. And
that's right.
And our bond came because we are brother tomb guards. And one of the other interesting things is we both served on the same relief, granted at different eras, and we share the same birth date. So
That's true.
that is true. If you could you just briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, as Gavin said, my name is Jim Cardamon. I was drafted in June of 1956. I did my basic training at Fort Knox and my advanced infantry training at Fort Dix, New Jersey. When I finished my advanced infantry training at Fort Dix, my orders sent me down on November 6th. As a matter of fact, my orders sent me down to what the sergeant at Fort Dix called the Spit and Polish Brigade, the Old Guard at Arlington, and that I had no idea. I'd heard of a lot of different infantry assignments, but I'd never heard of Fort Myer. And when I got down there with a bunch of other fellows, we went through a couple of week training, and at the end of the 2-week training, the executive officer from the Honor Guard company came up and took 10 of us out of there were about 40 people in that training unit, out of the 40 guys that were there at the time, to take them down to the Honor Guard company. And he did so, and when I got down there, each one of us was given the choice of which platoon we wanted to go to. The first platoon had the decided that I wanted to try the to, the first platoon for the drill team, and I figured if I wasn't good enough to make the drill team, I certainly knew that I could pull the trigger for the firing party or carry a casket for the casket bearers.
Jim,
So yes.
if I may, when you got assigned to that training unit, was that unit attached to the old guard? Or was that a separate unit?
The training unit that I went to was actually my first day there. I reported to the A company, which was the honor guard company. That's where they dropped us off out of the bus. The next day, they sent us up the street to Delta Company, where we did that 2-week training. Other guys that had been shipped in from other basic training units.
And that training basically consisted of just bringing you up to the old guard standards and
basic drill ceremonies, marching, how you responded to commands, the manual, and what you just said, the old guard's way of doing things.
How did the assignment to the drill team go? Had you ever had any experience in that before?
Oh, no, never. No, never. It's an interesting thing that I will share with you. I had a closest friend in high school who went down to the Citadel to go to school after we graduated. And when he came home, I went over to his house one day, and he had me marching around in his yard with a broom on my shoulder, giving me dismounted drill and marching commands because he knew I'd been drafted when I was leaving. So I went into the Army with that yard work of one half a day with my friend.
So how long did you spend with the drill team?
Well, I was with the drill team probably about 10 months all told. I drilled, and when I wasn't drilling, I was the right guard on the color team.
Okay. So how did you learn about the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier?
Well, that's a story in itself. Standing in the chow line one day, I was a relatively still a new man, and I was standing in line, and I saw this guy walk by, had on a blue overcoat, dress. I didn't even know the Army had dress blues at that time. And he goes with a white scarf around his neck, and he breezed right through past the chow line into the chow hall. And before I had moved six people in the line, he was back out, heading out. And I said to the fellow behind me, "What was that?" He said, "That was a tomb guard." I said, "A tomb guard? What's that?" He said, the unknown soldier tomb is out in the cemetery. And I said, "Oh," and the lights flashed and everything, because in high school I had read an article about the tomb guards in a little magazine insert in our newspaper in 1953. When I had read that, when I saw him and remembering what I had read, honest to God, it's the first time in my life that I had set a real goal, and my goal was that I thought to myself, I have just got to do what I have to do to get a chance to go there. And in my day, it was very unlikely that you were going to the tomb if you hadn't traveled through the drill team, 2 Post 1. And the color team was made ED. We were exempt from duty, no Post Guard and no KP. I loved that. And I came into the quarters one day, and one of the guys said, "Hey, Jim, you're on KP tomorrow." I said, "No, we don't pull KP. We're ED." He said, "No, you were ED." And I went over to the board, and I looked. Sure as hell, I had KP. and that meant I would be on the Post Guard roster. I had pulled Post Guard one time in all that interim, and I said to myself, well, if I'm going to have to pull Post Guard, then I'd better be pulling the best guard post there is, and that's at the tomb. So I went to my platoon sergeant, who was Sergeant Elridge, go find out. And about a half an hour, he came back and said, if you really want to go, take your gear and head over to Post 1 area.
Wow.
That's what I did. That's, that was my first step to get out there.
Wow.
What I was fortunate enough to do is to have acquaintances with some of the guys that had been at the tomb. So they spent quite a bit of time with me. I remember them having me practice on a curb, walking and crossing as I walked, crossing my feet, and making sure I didn't bounce. And I was fortunate that I don't bounce when I march, so that wasn't too hard to overcome.
Well, that's kind of interesting, Jim, because that same training technique was used 40 years later when I was learning how to do it. I was brought out to the same thing, out to the curb in front of the company and told to march up and down the curb. Again, making sure that I could do it without bouncing or glide across that small curb without looking down. All that. So kind of interesting. The same training techniques were in place in 1957, and I'm sure they're probably still being used today.
So in that process, Gavin, we're going to be talking back and forth, and I found out from them what routine went before you could hope to get out there. And they told me about Post 1, and what's Post 1? Well, it's number 1, quarters number 1 on Fort Myer, and the Chief of Staff of the Army, who was Maxwell Taylor at that time, lives in that house. And when you have to, the process was, at that time, someone would tap you on the shoulder, an NCO, and he would say, are you interested in trying to become a tomb guard? And you were ready to answer yes or no. And if your answer was yes, then they said, okay, you'll have to go to Post 1. You have to remember that in my day, the draft was in place, and most of the men in the company, as well as I found out most of the men at the tomb in that period of time, were draftees. And we only had 2 years of active duty to serve. So there was a little bit of turnover, much more turnover than what's out there today.
Right.
So you went out to Post 1, and you pulled the duty that was required. It was a 24-hour guard, and then you were off 24. So when you were off 24, you went out to the tomb, and in the evening you practice in the evening, and you practice underneath
in the catacombs.
Yeah. And if you were advancing as you should, or as they felt you should, the relief commander and the SOG and the executive officer of the company was then responsible for the platoon of tomb guards, because the Post 1 was separate from the tomb.
Post 1 was a special assignment just for Alpha Company at that point. Is that right?
Well, yeah.
So if you were in the regiment and you wanted to be a tomb guard, the first thing you had to do in the regiment was get assigned to Alpha Company and then work your way through the process. Now, what kind of duties did you do at Post 1?
Well, we actually, all we did, I think there were 2 reliefs. One relief was on the first 24, and a second relief, the other relief was on the second 24. And for that 24 that you were on, you went out and you walked around the Chief of Staff's house. Well, during the daylight, you walked in front of his home. And in the evening hours, you walked in front, down the side, around the back around to the other side, and back into the sentry box. You were supposed to make that trip like every 3 minutes.
So when you were walking during the day hours at Post 1, were you marching very similar in fashion as you did at the tomb?
No, not really. Certainly not as rigid or ceremonial, because there were no people there. Uh, there were cars that would come by occasionally, every once in a while. I think once in the period of time that I was there, I saw the chief of staff. But your uniform, that's one thing I do want to mention.
Okay.
The uniform obviously had the same kind of care to it that you did out at the tomb. Uh, my period of time that I was there, I was in khakis, polished brass every day, and you didn't just polish it. You tried to do something with it to make it just above polishing it, whether it was spinning it on a Turkish towel until it got little swirls in it, punching just a little bit of a hump in the center so it would be totally flat, had a little dimension to it. You did little things.
Right.
Try to be very sharp, because what I learned, and so did other guys, is that person that tapped you on the shoulder, said, "Would you like to try to become a field guard?" was looking for those kind of things in the men that they wanted, that were doing something extra.
Right.
Every burial that we fell out to, we were also the marching platoon for all the burials, the drill team.
Okay.
Every time you fell out for that, there was a uniform inspection, and if your uniform wasn't correct for the burial details, you might as well forget any hope of ever going out to the tomb.
Were all of the guys that assigned to Post 1, did they eventually go down to the tomb, or did some just not advance?
No, they did not.
How long were you actually standing outside of Post 1 for a shift? Was it an hour? Was it 2 hours?
An hour.
An hour.
You were on for an hour.
And then when you got relieved of your assignment during the day, where did you go?
Well, back to the honor guard company. We had. I remember thinking of that yesterday. We were in the upstairs of the left wing as you look at it from the parade field. And the tomb guards were on the first floor, and that's where you would head, and that's where they would take you out from to go out to Post 1.
Okay.
And at that time, if you're looking out from the parade field out towards Henry Tate,
okay,
E Company, we had become E Company then. After I arrived there, and it was A Company, there was some reorganization. They moved us up to that first building as you look out towards Henry Tate from the parade field on your left.
Got it. Okay.
And that's where the first platoon was on the right, upstairs right wing.
Now, you said that you had interacted at least once with General Taylor, who was the chief of staff during your time. Anything memorable about that, or was it just a simple
not really
salute?
It was just very military passing.
Okay.
Of him walking into the building. In all honesty, I had been in the company long enough and associated with enough of those guys that I was ready, and they came up with a need for a sentry. I got a telephone call on my day off when I was back at the barracks, and it was the sergeant of the guard, and he said to me, "Is your gear ready?" And I said, "Well, yeah, my gear's always ready. Why?" And he said, "Because I need a sentry out of the tomb. I have a six. I need the sentry. I have the sixth sentry." And he said, "We want you to go." And I thought, well, if I tell him I'm not ready, I'll never be asked again.
So that was your one shot at getting down there, and you were ready.
And when we went out there, they usually put us on at that time. They put us on at 7:00 in the morning when there was no crowd. That was our first time on the mat. Was at 7. And then you wouldn't go back do you want me? And he said, at noon.
Oh wow! So he put you right out in the big time.
At noon, you're right. At noon, and I have a discussion with the Army on this. They had October. I know I was in September, but that's not going to argue with him. There was a significant crowd. Let me put it that way. And I expected there to be. And I thought, if I say no, I'm buried. I know it'll never happen.
Do you remember any of the other guys that served with you at Post 1?
You know what? That's the shame of it. I don't remember the guys that were on Post 1 with me.
Okay.
I really don't.
Was there an officer in charge of Post 1 or just an NCO?
The thing came under the SOG.
Okay, so the sergeant of the guard of the tomb.
So the executive officer who was in charge of the tomb quarters was also in charge of Post 1.
And did you ever have that officer come out and do inspections while you were at Post 1 for that small time?
I'll tell you who I had. I had the officer of the day. The OD used to come out and do that.
Okay.
I got it one night, and as I said, it had to be within a 2 to 3 week period because I wasn't there that long after that. Came out and queried me on my 11 general orders and my 14 special orders. I had to quote the 25 orders to him, and he went. He didn't say, "Give me your 11 general orders." I can't remember like it was yesterday. He said, what is your first special order? And then he would say, what is your sixth general order? And so he shotgunned all of those specific orders. And I got through that. Obviously, or I would have been yanked off.
Any other memorable moments while you were at Post 1?
Not really. I think when you talk to other fellows that were there, probably the one thing that we'll all talk about is in the at the 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning things, and when everything in the world is so quiet and dark, and you had to go down in front of his quarters, turn right, go down the driveway, turn right again, and come across the back of the quarters, and then turn right again and come back out to the front of the house in the sentry box, which was across the street from the quarters. The trip behind the house and down the side of the house was pitch black, nary a light. And it was like anybody's backyard. It had bushes, weeds, and stuff hanging over. And sometimes you'd hit a bush and it would make you jump like hell because it was, spooky. If you allow me to say that word. It was just a tad spooky when you got back there. And the trip in the back of the house was really done as quick step as you could.
You didn't have a flashlight?
You did not have a flashlight. We had ammunition. We had ammunition in our cartridge belt, and one of the special orders covers when you're allowed to put that in the weapon.
Okay. Did you ever have to do that?
No, I did not. No, I did not. And I never heard of anybody ever having to do that during my period in Fort Myer. I can say that.
Right. So nighttime hours were not exactly the funnest at there at Post 1.
Oh no. That whole duty, daylight or night, I would much rather have spent all that time at the tomb because there were people there, activity that was going on around you, and at Post 1 it was just stand in the sentry box every 3 minutes, take that walk.
Wow.
And at night it was a good time that you could, when you were making that walk, that you could practice the walk that you had hoped you would get a chance to use at the tomb. And so would as you got down to the side and around, just starting around, but mostly going down the driveway when you were really removed from any help of anybody.
Right.
You know, there was no problem of having the rifle between, or between the tomb and the rifle like you have out at the tomb. You didn't have that issue.
Right. Was the guard box or the sentry's box, was that located on the same parade field as the flagpole?
Yes,
Okay.
right at the corner of that big flag field.
Yep.
If you go down that road,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
if you start from the top of the hill, it comes down from the O Club.
Correct. Okay.
And go straight back towards that first house back there. The sentry box was across the street, right on. It seemed like it was on some sort of corner. I can't, but it was just a turn around because there was no road out back there. When you went down there, you had to turn left.
Did you ever have visitors at nighttime that were going to the Army Chiefs of Staff's residence for meetings or just to go to the
No,
residence?
no, but that's also covered in the
Okay.
special orders.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Jim?
It's hard to compare to the training that the guards go through now. What we got an awful lot of the training in the company, the uniform stuff and all that stuff, and the shining, the shoes. There were guys in the company that even had their quarters, their low quarters, triple and double soled, just for general duty work. There was a lot of stress on the manual and your posture. I can remember standing and the guys in the company, not at the tomb, in the company, standing me up, with making me pinch the cheeks of my butt together and tilting my lower pelvic forward so that the line down my back would be straight. And so I practiced that hours doing that pinching. I mean, I always used to wind up doing that when I got out of the Army, standing out in the woods hunting deer when I didn't have anything else to do.
It was just ingrained into you.
Yeah. So you went, you had that. That's why if you had a passion for getting your ass out to the field, you did as much as you possibly could do to be noticed.
Right. Do you remember who the exec's name?
Yes, I do. Lieutenant Harris. And you know who knew him was God rest his soul, Neil. Because one day Neil called me, and after we started the society,
Mm-hmm.
and said that he found out that Lieutenant Harris was living in Florida. Gave me his number. I got a chance to call him and talk to him. And it was that super thing. He would have he and Lieutenant Cosby or Colonel Cosby were almost like twins. I mean that they were built the same way, slight builds, very. We had what we called White Lieutenant Harris and Black Lieutenant Harris, because this Lieutenant Harris that I'm talking about had blonde hair, light hair, and the other guy had dark hair. That's how we differentiated who we were referring to.
Wow.
Light and dark. Maybe it was light and dark. But I talked to him, and of course, he had so much Army life after that this scraggly draftee didn't jump up into his mind right away. But he was the only Lieutenant Harris I had, so that's what I remember.
Nice.
It was a nice thing. So that was a result of Post 1. All of that was a result of Post 1.
Well, Jim, I want to thank you for spending the time today to talk to us about your time there in the Old Guard, and especially down at Post 1 prior to going to the tomb. I want to publicly thank you for your service. I know you were drafted, but still, you accepted that responsibility and the duties within the United States Army. You protected our nation. You made it very strong, and provided me eventually with the opportunity to do the same. So thank you for serving. I appreciate it.
Well, I think it was two of the best years of my life. It was such a great education about people that helped me in my career afterwards. I mean, prior to that, prior to going in, all I knew of people were people that were in my school and back with me. Now, when I went to the Army, there was what I always called just a big cross pollination going on, uh, and helped me recognize character in people, lack of character in people, ambition in people, lack of ambition in people, things I never thought of as a younger man.
Well, we're going to go ahead and conclude the interview. Thank you again. And
Well, my pleasure.
we'll talk to you later on about your experiences during the double internment of the World War II and the Korean War unknown soldier, but we'll save that for a later interview.
Okay, that's fine with me, Gavin. I love participating with you.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Thanks for all the trouble you go to doing these things for the society, too.
No worries.
Okay.
Bye. Well, thank you again for listening to our interview with Jim Cardamon about his time at Post 1 on Fort Myer, Virginia. I want to thank Jim for taking the time to talk to us, as well as some of the photos that he shared with us. He was kind enough also to provide us with copies of the 11 general and 14 special orders, which we will continue to highlight as we do more of these interviews. I also want to take a moment to thank Rex Looney, Jan Lilly, and the Old Guard Museum for the photos they shared for this episode as well. I hope you have enjoyed this and will tune in to our next episode as we continue to explore what it was like to stand guard at Post Number 1 in the late 1950s and early 1960s on Fort Myer, Virginia. You can always stay up to date on what is happening within the Society of the Honor Guard, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, by visiting us on our social media platforms, where we've been talking about the pending Centennial Anniversary in 2021 and how you and your community can help us with the National Salute. Don't forget to share this episode with your family and friends. And until next time, stay safe and Line 6.